Government land sale details for the third quarter. A protest march to the Chief Executive's office on day 3 of a student class boycott. And airstrikes in Syria against a new radical group that poses a threat to America.
Good evening. The government has unveiled its land sale plans for the third quarter, increasing the supply for private residential units by an estimated 6,500 units. As Joel Da Silva reports, for the first time in more than a decade, the government will put industrial land up for tender.
In the third quarter, the government will put up for tender 6 residential sites, which are capable of producing about 1,250 flats. The sites are located in Ma On Shan, Tai Wai, Kwai Chung and Tuen Mun in the New Territories, Sham Shui Po in Kowloon and Cheung Sha on Lantau Island. The 2 sites in Kwai Chung and Tuen Mun are new additions to this year's land sale program.
The site in Kwai Chung was originally staff quarters of the Water Services Department. After a recent review, the site is considered suitable for residential use. As for the residential site in Tuen Mun, it is ready for sale for residential use.
In addition, the MTR Corporation's project at the Tin Shui Wai Light Rail Terminus and Lohas Park in Cheung Kwan O, which the railway operator plans to put up for tender, should provide a minimum of about 4,600 flats. And the Urban Renewal Authority also plans to invite tender for sites on Haitan Street and Kwai Lin Street in Sham Shui Po, providing an estimated 850 units.
The total land supply for the first 3 quarters is estimated to be about 16,800, representing about 90% of the average annual target for private housing land supply.
2 commercial sites in Kwai Chung and Pung Tong will also be up for sale. And for the first time since September 2000, the government is putting up for sale an industrial site in Kwai Chung, a sign of the changing times.
With the rising labor costs on the mainland and the continuing appreciation of renminbi, business people in Hong Kong indicated to the government that they are considering moving some of the high value-added manufacturing process back to Hong Kong.
Alvin Lam of Midland Surveyors called the estimated supply of more than 6,000 flats from the third quarter land sale a really good figure. He said if the sales go through, the government has a high chance of reaching its target of supplying 18,800 flats this year. Joel Da Silva, TVB News.
About 500 people staged a protest march from Tamar Park to the Chief Executive's office on day 3 of the class boycott by tertiary students over political reform. The march was held without police permission. Stephanie Choi has the story.
The march held in the afternoon is really want to connect students and society, so to demonstrate that democratic movement needs the participation of every Hong Kong citizens. The following days, what we need is struggle, but not only civil lectures.
This afternoon, some of those taking part in the class boycott at Tamar Park staged the march through Central. They tied yellow ribbons to the gates outside the Chief Executive's office, hoping that Lun Chen-ying would meet with them as the 48-hour ultimatum nears its end. The Federation of Students had not applied for a letter of no objection from the police for the rally. University students there told us that they were aware of the possible consequences.
It's the right thing to do, so I don't care whether there will be something suffered after.
We are prepared to bear any legal consequences once we participate in this protest.
The protesters had to stop a number of times during the march because the route they have chosen includes very busy areas in Central. Students were today joined at Tamar Park by a group of social workers who took leave to show their support. The Social Welfare Department assured the public that its services have not been affected. The gathering will continue here tomorrow, but organizers may change the venue for Friday, as the government has not given them permission to use Tamar Park. Also on Friday, Scholarism will be holding a separate rally outside the central government offices as part of a class boycott by secondary students. But it hasn't received a letter of no objection from the police. The group is convinced that it would be the ideal venue for the boycott.
We organized a class boycott assembly inside the school. It's just changing the place for study from the classroom to the library. It cannot give any pressure or show our opinion or expectation towards CCP or Hong Kong government.
Some school associations have already spoken out against secondary school students joining the class boycott. Stephanie Choi, TVB News.
A truck that was latched onto a tow truck broke loose and rolled down a slope in Ho Man Tin this morning. A 75-year-old passerby was critically injured, while another pedestrian and the driver of the tow truck were also hurt. Evelina Lung reports.
The truck rode down Fat Kwong Street and hit this elderly man at a pedestrian crossing. The driver of the tow truck ran after the runaway lorry in an attempt to stop it. He was injured during the process. The two men were sent to hospital for treatment. A 22-year-old university student passing by the area was also slightly injured. The accident happened just before 9 o'clock this morning. The tow truck was driving along Fat Kwong Street with the 9-ton lorry attached to it. The tow truck's harness broke and the attached vehicle rode down the slope. This witness said the lorry hit a traffic light before coming to a stop. Authorities say they are looking into the cause of the accident.
In this accident, they are using some kind of harness. Actually, this is not metal harness, it's some kind of fiber harness. And we are trying to evaluate whether this harness is fit for this kind of trucks.
The police said they're also looking into whether the accident involved overloading. The runaway truck was involved in a 3-vehicle accident on Gascon Road flyover earlier in the morning. It was being towed to the Ho Man Tin vehicle pound under police escort when the runaway accident happened. Evelyn Lang, TVB News.
Turning overseas now, US President Barack Obama will address the United Nations later today on the progress in the battle against the Islamic State militant group that has seized control of much of northern Iraq and eastern Syria. The airstrikes moved to a new front on Tuesday as the United States and its Arab allies bombed targets in Syria. Alan Buckner reports.
Scores of Islamic State fighters were killed as warplane and ship-launched missiles struck dozens of targets, including training compounds, headquarters, and command and control facilities. Witnesses sifting through the rubble in Kafar Daryan in northern Syria said displaced civilians were also killed in the strikes. The attacks encountered no objection and even signs of tacit approval from Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Al-Assad had said earlier that any attack on Syrian soil would be viewed as an act of aggression. But in a remarkable sign of shifting Middle East alliances, al-Assad said during a meeting with Iraq's national security advisor that the U.S. had notified him in advance of the strikes. In New York, U.S. President Barack Obama is expected to urge more countries to join the American-led coalition that includes France and 5 Arab nations.
And because of the almost unprecedented effort of this coalition, I think we now have an opportunity to send a very clear message that the world is united, that all of us are committed to making sure that we degrade and ultimately destroy not only ISIL, but also the kinds of extremist ideologies that would lead to so much bloodshed.
Meanwhile, British Prime Minister David Cameron may announce as early as sometime this week that Britain is ready to join in the airstrikes.
So this is a fight you cannot opt out of. These people want to kill us. They have got us in their sights, and we have to put together this coalition to make sure that we ultimately destroy this evil organization.
Alan Brooknia, TVB News.
In addition to taking out Islamic State strongholds, the U.S. purposely launched airstrikes against the Khorasan group in Syria. The U.S. State Department claims the Khorasan, an al-Qaeda affiliate, was preparing attacks against America and other Western targets. The U.S. is at war with yet another enemy called the Khorasan group. Its members are seasoned militants linked to al-Qaeda, who quickly became priority number 2 on last night's list of targeted airstrikes in Syria.
The majority of the Tomahawk strikes were against Khorasan group compounds, their manufacturing workshops, and training camps. The second wave consisted of F-22 Raptors in their first combat role, F-15 Strike Eagles, F-16s, B-1 bombers, and drones.
The Pentagon confirms that American warplanes dropped 8 bombs on Khorasan targets to disrupt an imminent attack against the U.S. and other Western interests.
But we've been watching this group closely for some time. We believe the Khorasan group was nearing the execution phase of an attack either in Europe or the homeland.
The Khorasan group may be new to most, but the Obama administration claims it's a network of the most dangerous extremist fighters across the Middle East. They include elements of al-Qaeda in Iraq and the Nusra Front al-Qaeda franchise in Syria. U.S. intelligence believes the Khorasan is now working with the Yemeni branch of al-Qaeda. And the biggest threat the group poses is recruiting fighters with Western passports and explosives to set off bombs on board U.S. planes.
We know that the Khorasan group has attempted to recruit Westerners to serve as operatives or to infiltrate back into their homelands. The Khorasan group is clearly not focused on either the Assad regime or the Syrian people. They are establishing roots in Syria in order to advance attacks against the West and the homeland.
The Khorasan cell is reportedly skilled at making cleverly disguised bombs. This is the reason why the Transportation Security Administration decided in July to ban uncharged mobile phones and laptops from flights to the U.S. that originate in Europe and the Middle East. The son-in-law of Osama bin Laden will spend the rest of his life behind bars for conspiring to kill Americans. The U.S. federal judge in New York sentenced Suleiman Abu Ghaith to life in prison because he expressed no remorse for his actions when assisting al-Qaeda in its mission to kill Americans. The judge cited a video in which Abu Ghaith appeared amused by the attacks of September 11, 2001, which killed nearly 3,000 people in the United States. Prosecutors prove Abu Ghaith was the main spokesperson for al-Qaeda after the 9/11 attacks. But lawyers for Abu Ghaith argued he was only guilty of delivering fiery speeches and had no knowledge of any al-Qaeda plots.
I found it interesting that
And Australian police shot and killed a teenage terror suspect last night after he stabbed 2 counter-terrorism officers. Authorities had asked 18-year-old Abdul Numan Haider to come to a police station in Melbourne for questioning. They said his behaviour had been causing concern. The 2 officers were stabbed when they approached him outside the police station. One of the officers shot dead the teenager, who was of Afghan origin. The 2 officers were in stable condition today. Authorities say the 18-year-old's passport was recently cancelled on national security grounds and that he had been seen waving what appeared to be a flag of the Islamic State extremist group at a shopping mall.
Promises were made, but there was no major breakthrough at a United Nations summit on climate change. World leaders expressed a sense of urgency to fight the problem, with U.S. President Barack Obama calling on other countries to follow Washington's lead.
We can only succeed in combating climate change if we are joined in this effort by every nation, developed and developing alike. Nobody gets a pass. I met with Chinese Vice Premier Zhang Guoli and reiterated my belief that as the two largest